All right. Someone asked me, did I keep different letters? And a lot of the letters I had, like from Radio Shack, warning me not to fix anything. And first it was a blanket letter for the whole company. We don't want you in front of the store installing CB antennas and all that. But at some point, they started seeing their sales decline. So all of a sudden, oh, if you go out there and help the customer, they look the other way. And I knew that was coming. Uh, so the last CB set I installed, I can tell you the last one. There's always a person that breaks what you're doing. Now, what I learned was you can't install a CB radio in front of the Radio Shack. That was what was in the letter. So you move over 100 feet and you're over in front of the Value House. But it's the entrance. There's no signage there. The main entrance is still up another 100 feet. So and I'm in the fire zone. I knew the police. I knew the fire department. They would look the other way. Oh, that's John's car. They knew my car. And at one point, the Chinese restaurant woman kept coming over. Please do not park your car in front of my store. And I did. I moved it up. I moved it over to the blind area of the Value House. But I was always, my car was, I was brand new. I bought a car. I was unemployed, but I bought a brand new car. It was a Nova. I got it from Schumacher Chevrolet in Little Falls. Anyway, so my car was always in the fire zone. And everybody knew if I was there because my car was in the fire zone. And, you get a big following, but there's no money in it. So someone had told this guy and his son my whole situation. I was on Trade Readjustment Act. Uh, it was my job in RCA was going to Brazil or whatever. Back in those days, believe it or not, I went to Brazil, South America, and the union filed for this act, and I got paid more money not working than when I did work because it was tax free. And the guy at unemployment screwed up. He thought I'm supposed to go back to school under Trade Readjustment Act, TRA, and he got it all wrong. He screwed me all up. So I had to find a job for so many hours a week, and the way he was confused. So I found that I could work so many hours a week at Radio Shack, and it's technically a new trade. And they accepted it. And I'm there working, and I found out it was wrong. Once that kid got fired at unemployment, the new guy says, "You're not supposed to be working. You're supposed to be signing up for a new school. We'll pay for the school 1 year. Then we review you again." I said, "All right, that's the story I told you." I went and looked at the different schools, and the guy told me that look at what his student built, and it was my clock that the guy bought from me in Radio Shack. I told you that story. Well, anyway, I used to do the repairs, the CB installs in front of the Value House, and I knew the manager there, and he'd have me they were selling CB radios, and I was putting them in for those people in front of their store in the fire zone. So anyway, I get these two guys, father and son, and the son's going to college for the first time. And back then, there was no cell phones. And the father thought for safety reasons, it would be good if the son had a CB radio in the car, because you could call on channel 9 and get the police. Believe it or not, years ago, you could, channel 9? Yeah, channel 9. React station. You get the police through 9 in most towns in New Jersey. So I'm putting this thing in, and the father and the son, they both weigh 500 pounds. And there's people that are in Radio Shack watching this whole thing. And while they're watching this, I would say to the guy, "You got to get up. You got to get up. I got to get in there under the dash." And the son would then sit down on the. It was a Laurel and Hardy sketch. The two of them could not hold their own weight and stand up. They were so fat. So any chance they got, if I moved out of the way, they'd sit in that. It was a Volkswagen, and I got the radio in, and then at one point, the guy had to go get me. I told you, slice of pizza and a Sprite. So I get all done, and we check it all out, and the guy that starts telling me about Trade Readjustment Act, and he's going to turn me in, and I'm not supposed to be working. And I said to him, that's not true. I said, I told him everything I'm actually doing. They made a mistake. We're trying to rectify it, but he's not going to pay me now because he's threatening to turn me into the government. And I said, well, you know, I said, all I charged you was a slice and a Sprite, and now it's getting ready for me to tune the antenna. And I forgot to tune the antenna. And then he started, I said, you know what? I said, I was only going to like charge you like $15. And I said, basically, no one said have a nice day back in those days. That hadn't come around yet. I said, it is what it is. So the kid drives away, and he's talking to someone, and then someone says to him, did you have him tune it for the trucker channel? Now that's the wrong channel. The kid wanted it for channel 9, so they came back. And they come in the store, and I said, look, that install has nothing to do with this store. I said, the CB is not from this store. And he's looking at me. I said, I don't care if you call in about Trade Readjustment. I talked to them. I told them that I'm hanging out at a Radio Shack, then working at a Radio Shack. And then I told them I put CB radios in, and you know, and they're taking off the money they're giving me each week based on what I get at Radio Shack. I would go there, say they were giving me $400 a week trade adjustment. I would go there and talk to the girl, and I'd show her my receipts from Radio Shack. And then I'd say I did this other work on the side, and they would take it off, and they wrote it all down. So the guy's starting to get angry. I don't care. I don't care. So they would leave, and everybody's like in the mall. They were watching this whole thing. Man, did you see how fat those guys were? And they were saying to me, what did they kept doing? They kept sitting. I said, they kept sitting back in the car. And I had to put mounts under the dash. And, you know, a fat person takes up a lot of room in a Volkswagen. And it was, I won't tell you what else they were. But anyway, that was it. And they saw it on my face. And everybody in that shopping mall heard this story or saw it. And I said, I'm getting ready to, I got a new guy for Trade Readjustment Act. And what the hell did happen next? Oh, I went to different schools. And at the one school, the guy says, oh, this school's better than Rets. I went to Rets, and I was looking for a school that was maybe a little bit better than Rets. Oh, our school is definitely better than Rets. And he says to me, he goes, let me show you what one of our graduating students made. He walks me over and he shows me my digital clock. See, when I worked in the Radio Shack, I had stuff from RCA. We had a company store, and if the player, it was a suitcase, you opened it up, and it was an 8-track player. I could get them for $5 each, not working. Open it up, fix it, put the belt back on, change the belt, whatever, brand new, in the box. And I put it back in the box, I put it in the trunk of the car. And I used to sell them out of the Radio Shack. The manager would look the other way. If things were slow, I wasn't allowed to sell anything if there was any other customer in the store. I had this own little thing going. I told you about the antennas I bought a gross of, and the other guy wanted in on it. I was doing all these different side hustles. They call them side hustles now. Back in those days, it was working under the table. It's a side hustle. I told unemployment about this stuff. Anyway, so I got all these things I'm selling, and I'm going checking these schools out. Well, anyway, one of the things I was trying to sell was a 23 chip clock I built. It was an RCA design that they would give the clock to a Numatron customer. And I think I'm saying Numatron correctly. Numatron? Well, Numatrons use filaments to light each digit. It would run off an IC. You couldn't multiplex it. That's as much. It's RCA. They made the clock. So I made one of these clocks. And I used blue perf board. I could tell you, oh, Vector blue perf board, which had an edge connector. My father made me a special bracket. This clock was beautiful, but no cabinet. It was made to be open air. Well, this kid kept coming in the Radio Shack and changing. I'll give you a, but and he ended up buying it for $5, and he left, and then he went into the school and passed it off as his. So now I'm looking at the school. In 1 year, the guys tell me our school's better than Rhett's, which wasn't true. And then I went off. I saw my clock there. I said, I sold this for $5 to get some extra money. And then I'm pretty loud when I'm saying it. And then this guy walking by hears me, looks in, recognizes me, comes over, and he goes, "What's going on?" I said, "That's the clock." He goes, "I knew I saw that somewhere." I said, "Remember I had it behind me?" And everybody come in the store. "Would you like to buy a clock?" I was selling stuff. AR5, AR3 radio speakers, AR1. I bought a bunch of speakers, and they were acoustical research, AR1s, AR whatever they were. And then I had them, I had them on the floor in Radio Shack, and people would say, "What's that?" I said, "That's an acoustical research." I said, "I'm selling them myself." I was just doing whatever I wanted to do because the manager was just so happy to have me there. And I sold a bunch of acoustical research speakers. Never had a person come back and complain because the price point was good. But it was so funny, my digital clock. And I didn't join that. But when I was at that school, I saw a wireless proto board for the first time. That's that white stuff. It's got all these pinholes, and you can connect your resistors. I saw that there. And I had seen it in magazines, but up close, I could see the resistors stuck in it. And then I realized that the pattern, you have a row of like 7 connections, and you could lay out a circuit on these. So I immediately had my mother write out a check. I didn't have a checkbook. My mother, we ordered it. I was explaining it to her. I could now build a circuit really fast. I bought a TTL cookbook, still here. Hold on. I think yeah, okay. So now, here it is. TTL cookbook. Don Lancaster. I talked to this guy, I don't know how many times over the phone. This book, if you just read this book, it shows you the inside of each chip. It shows you some examples of different circuits you can build. So if you really buy this book years ago and read it, it's basically a course that you would have to go to college for. So now I'm a TTL guy, and I told you I went to Singer Kierfalt one day for a job, and I'm talking to the girl. She says, "We're laying off. We're not hiring." So I'm looking over the girl's shoulder, and I see TRW across the street. It's Corporate Center up in Fairfield. Actually, Industrial Park, not Corporate Center. So I'm talking to her. She says, "What does TRW do?" She says, "It does a lot of the stuff that we do." And she said, "Matter of fact, we sold some of our stuff off to them, and they're doing the service." I said, "Oh, they do service?" "Yeah, yeah." And there were guys in that TRW that come in the store all the time, and I asked them, "Are they hiring by you?" And they lied to me. They didn't want me anywhere near them. So anyway, I leave the girl, and I come home. My mother goes, "How'd you make out?" I said, "I'm going to try this other place tomorrow." Or maybe I did try it the same day. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think I was going to try it the next, yeah. So my mother's like, "Why didn't you go down?" I said, "Well, I said it'd be pretty bad. The girl just interviewed me, and now I'm going to drive out of her parking lot, drive across the street, and then go in that building." I waited the next day. I come up dressed up. I went in, and I told you the story once before. The secretary, "No, we're not hiring." What a bitch. So anyway, the girl next to her, there's 2 cubicles next to her. She says, "Oh, Jerry Hunt's in the building. He's looking for men." "No, he's not." Well, anyway, the girl picks up the phone, puts 9 in, and pages Jerry Hunt. And he comes out. That's the first time I met Jerry. And he's looking at my resume. And I said, "Look, I brought the streamed down resume so you can quickly look at that. I worked at RCA, I worked at McGraw-Edison, I worked at Crystal. It's all there. But I streamlined it so you can read it real fast." I said, "If there are any questions." So he goes, "Follow me back." So I have to follow him back to where I'm eventually going to work. And I follow him back, and he hires me. He says, "Look," He says, I can't ask you these questions, but if you answer them, you got the job. So we got chatting. You know, I told you I'm chatty about circuitry, and you could tell I loved the shit. And he hired me. And I come home and I said, yeah, the guy hired me, but it's going to be a couple days because they got to do the paperwork. And my mother's shaking her head. They were just blowing smoke up your ass. And then when I did get the job, my mother says, they're not paying you enough. Yeah. Then after I'm there a couple months, they kept giving me raises. And it's, I never seen a person get that many raises in a row. No matter what I did, my mother had a problem with it. And you can see that if you watch Seinfeld, the parents of Jerry, no matter what he does, they wanted him to be a pharmacist or something like that. Yeah, so they bought the father the car. I laugh hysterically at that because when I start buying my parents like a new washing machine, a dryer. What do you want? I got money, and they see it. They see me coming home with these paychecks, and they're just going into the bank. At work, I asked this one guy. I won't tell you his name. I asked him. I said, "Those are scrap boards. Can I have some of them?" What do you want them for? I'm going to take them home, take the chips off, and do some experiment. No, no. So this other guy, who was real well known, he was a smart tech, and he hears this, and he comes over and he starts emptying out people's parts cabinets. They're the little plastic drawers. He starts emptying them out into like a big paper bag, and he goes, "Give me the keys to your car. Give me the keys to your car." And I give him the keys because it carries all this ICs, brand new 7400 series, out to the car because I've been helping him with stuff, and he puts it in. The next time he did it with power supplies. Everybody in the place has got these power supplies. They're never going to use them. They're scrapping them out in the back. I asked, no, you can't have any. So he hears this, and he goes down the back, and he gets a truck. Yeah, they call it a truck. Anyway, you load all this stuff. It's actually a big dolly. He loads the dolly up with all these power supplies. He comes up to the company, waving to the different bosses. He goes up to the front, and of course he says, "Give me the keys to your car. Give me the keys to your car." And he takes the power supplies and carries them out and fills my trunk up with them. And they were Cedar Knolls, New Jersey. They were a regulated power supply. There were 5s, -5s, 12s, +12s, and I think a 25 volt. And they were from a system we were going to repair. We put all this crap into stock, and the company went belly up, and we had to throw it out. They're throwing the stuff out. But one boss, and it's the same boss as the first time, he decided I wasn't going to get any of the power supplies. So then I went and told some of the other bosses, and they got really pissed. They said, everybody's been carrying them out. I said, well, I always ask. And then after that, they just started bringing me stuff. If a guy knocked over his parts bin, the boss would say, sweep all that up, stick it in a bag, and give it to John. Even after I left that company, when a section closed up, they'd say to the guy, dump all those parts out of those bins. We'll reuse the drawers, and somebody drive it down to John's house. So even after I had quit the place, I was still getting all kinds of ICs. But I just want to tell you some of the adventures that I've gone through, and it's because my name would be well known within a few days. In RCA, I would shorten a women's, I told you once before, they had this trolley test. You put a tube in it, and you move this switch back and forth. And it's called like a trolley. The brake on the trolley. It looked like it, that's what they called it. And the women would catch their necklaces in there, and it would break. So they would bring their necklaces to me, and I would shorten them just enough it wouldn't catch in the trolley switch. So the first week, the guys hung 3 balls over my bench, which means pawn shop. And I started fixing clocks for people and radios for people. And the guy next to me was hilarious. He waited, I don't know, I think about a year. And then one day, he took the watch that didn't work off his wrist, and he handed it to me. And the story with the watch was when he went in to get it fixed at Sears, he met this really good-looking girl, and she sold him a microwave oven, and the money to fix the watch went towards the microwave. So he wore this watch that was only right twice a day. It never worked. And I undid it in a plastic bag, and the balance spring was tangled. And I pulled a pin out. I know how to do watches. So I pulled the pin out. I relieved the mainspring, and then I untangled it. I put it back together, hand it back to him. And it worked. Every once in a while, like on a Friday, he would put the watch up to his ear and then look at me and smile because he didn't have the money. He was tight. He was a pisser, man. Some of the cool people I worked with, Ken Recor, the engineer, and I've become like him. In other words, there's always a simpler way to do something. And then I had a boss that didn't really appreciate that. He wanted stuff fixed real fast. And he was always writing stuff up that I did. And the one company where Goldbrick worked, I worked with Goldbrick. I changed his name. But Goldbrick would constantly get letters from vendors thanking them for what I went beyond the call of duty. And he would show me the letter with my name on it, but he would keep it. He goes, "This is going to show the next place where I work, the kind of men I led." I didn't get the letters. And he would hold it at a distance. He wouldn't let me really actually touch it. Yeah, he was a real piece of work. Yeah, I had some really creepy, crazy bosses. All right, they're under a lot of pressure, and there may be one promotion too high above where they should be, and they really don't know what they're doing. And Goldbrick, I was always bailing him out. And then he had a lot of guys from Bendix that he hired. They were his buddies. And then when the shit hit the fan, he let all us guys that never worked with him at Bendix go. We got thrown under the bus. And he's not alive anymore. Most of the people I talk about, they're dead. They're dead. I'm 73. They're dead. But if you watch the last video, yes, there are people that realize what I'm really like. And when I'm with other people, I don't talk about my past anymore. I talk about things that are changing in the neighborhood, new stores that are opening up, and whatever's bothering them. I no longer talk about I don't really talk about. One guy did about the antenna in the attic, getting extra channels, because he worked for the telephone company, and he knows what I'm talking about when I'm talking electronics. But most of the time, that's why people are like, "Don't you remember me? I was having a bad day, and you were." I'm like, "Yeah, I sort of remember you. You know, I saw you. You looked really sad." You know, I don't tell them this, but I crack a joke. Like this morning, more and more people are moving here from Poland and